Johnny Tremain, Chapter 11, Part 4. Here are two questions that you should think about and try to answer before, during, or after your reading. Whom does Johnny meet at the lights, and what is to become of them? Number 2. What is the truth about Johnny Tremain's past and his family? Part 4. Getting 2,000 men, or what was left of them, for gossip was saying that they had been well chewed, into boats and back to Boston would create just the confusion Dr. Warren had promised. But it would not be easy for Johnny to slip over. The soldiers were cross and frightened. He would wait a little until they were more relaxed, say about midnight. Before him, lighted from top to bottom, he saw the Light's house, and he remembered Pumpkin's uniform. Dressed in that, he might slip aboard in the confusion. He went to the lights. In front of the house, he saw wagons and carts and men loading them with furniture, chests, trunks, boxes, even old portraits. The lights were moving, and by night, and in a hurry. He went to the kitchen door. Mrs. Bessie, who certainly ought to have been superintending this moving, was sitting idly in the kitchen, doing nothing. Scylla sat beside her. She was doing nothing. Mrs. Bessie jerked her thumb toward the front of the house. "Scared," she said. "We're all going to London until this insurrection, as they call it, is over. The Unicorn leaves at dawn tomorrow. Gage has given us permission." "Scylla," said Johnny, "don't you go with them." "Never. We all had a terrible fight this afternoon when word first came that us Yankees had beaten them hollow. All the other servants are Tories and are going with them. But Mrs. Bessie and I are Whigs, and we are not going with them. In the end, Mr. Light said he was glad we are Whigs because he will leave us here to look after his property. Gage has promised nothing up here will be touched. But they don't want us around, can't bear the sight of us," Mrs. Bessie said smugly. "The very sight of a good Whig makes them furious. Mr. Light did have another fit, just a little one. Miss Lavinia is afraid if she doesn't get her papa right out of town and off to London, he'll die. She always did like London better than Boston anyway. They are leaving tonight, and fast." "What's Asana gonna do?" "Is he?" Mrs. Bessie's lips curled. "She'll go with them." "She will not," said Scylla. "Miss Lavinia has gone down to Hancock's Wharf to ask Ma to let her take her. But Ma couldn't give her away, just as though she was a kitten." Miss Lavinia was standing in the doorway from the dining room to the kitchen. She had on a black coat, with the hood to it over her head. She stood a moment, looking about, and said nothing. Johnny was on his feet. He knew he would never forget her. Never. Even when he was an old man, he would remember Lavinia Light standing, framed in that doorway, saying nothing. Her eyes were angry and tired. The chisel mark was deep between the low, sweeping black brows. He had never seen her look so worn and old, and never been more aware of her beauty. "Isana is going with me," she said at last. "Your mother, Scylla, has too many kittens." "Miss Lavinia," said Scylla, "you can't do that." "Can't? Your mother signed the paper, and you're a wicked girl to stand in the way of your sister's good fortune." A little diffidently, Isana herself emerged from behind the lady's great dark skirts. "Isana," said Scylla gently, "you can't go off and leave me like this. It's no matter what Mother says. Look, dear, if you go to London, maybe you will never come back. Isana, don't go away. From me." Lavinia was smiling under her dark hood. I will leave the decision entirely to her. She shall be perfectly free to choose between us. Precious, would you rather go with me to London and be a great lady, and wear silks and jewels and ride in coaches? Or stay here and be just another poor working girl? And then, to make the choice doubly hard for the child, she added a little maliciously, "Which do you love most, Scylla or me?" Still, Isana said nothing, but even in her silence, Johnny could detect something of her desire for drama. At the moment, silence was more dramatic than anything she could say. Izzy is no good, thought Johnny. She'll go. Scylla was standing quietly, well away from the child. She was too proud to make any further appeal to her. Perhaps, like Johnny, she knew what the answer would be. "Well," said Lavinia, "I haven't got all day. Which do you love the most?" Isana began to cry. It was perfectly natural crying. Not even Johnny could believe it was done for effect. "I don't know," she sobbed. "Which would you rather be, a common person like your sister, or a fine lady?" "A fine lady," she sniffled, and went on dreamily. "And I'll have a great pony and a pony cart. I've got the gold locket already." Her hand went to her throat. Next, she'd be saying she wanted a little sailboat. Even now she was only reflecting old desires of Scylla's. Isana never could think up anything for herself. "Yes, dear, you will, when I am Lady Prior Morton, and you, my little protégé," she explained to the others. "I've been betrothed to marry my lord ever since I last came back from London. Papa is a very sick man. He could never live through a civil war over here. Never. He doesn't want to leave all his property to the mob. But what does it matter? My lord is so rich. This miserable house, our ships, shops, are nothing to him. And my lord never liked it that my papa was in trade. Until now, papa would not give up his trade, nor could I bear to leave him." She turned to Scylla. "And I promise you, I will be in a position to give your sister the best care and training." "Training?" said Johnny. "What's she going to be trained for?" "Isana shall be an actress. I would have been myself, but my station in life prevented me. And then, I am too tall. And, besides, I can't act. Isana shall be the toast of London. You'll be proud some day. Even over here in this dreary wilderness, you shall hear her name, and boast that once you knew her."